So I've been a product owner here at itslearning for 7 years, and before that I used to teach chemistry, science and maths at a secondary school here in Bergen in Norway. Over the past 6 years or so, we have extended our reporting capabilities a lot with the 360-degree reports for teachers, mentors and students, and with advanced reporting as an additional product for those that need even more, both on the high level across courses and organizations, and for deep dives into data. We collaborated closely with customers to identify which data are of particular interest, and over the course of a few years, built reports to cover important areas. I will start by giving you a high-level overview of what we offer, and then go into details about advanced reports aimed primarily at administrators and managers. After a short break, I'll dive into the standard reports for admins, teachers, and students. The goal of the presentation today is to give you a glimpse of what information is available and the key value of it. So reporting in itslearning can be broadly divided into 3 areas. We have the standard reports that are part of the platform in general. Those are for teachers, we have reports for mentors, we have reports for students, giving them insight into their own progress. And we also have reports for administrators looking at more high-level view of the platform usage. The next part is the advanced reports. This is aimed at administrators. It's really flexible and really powerful deep dive into the data that we have in itslearning. Advanced reporting is across the entire site, meaning that for a university, it would be across the entire university with all the departments. This is an additional add-on to the itslearning product and not part of the standard offering. And as part of that, we also offer access to the data warehouse where the reporting data resides. And this is it can be accessed via an open standard called OData. And this is documented well on our public website. I'll get back to that as we move along. So as mentioned, advanced reporting is an add-on to our main platform. We use a third-party specialized software for generating and viewing the reports called Tableau. Tableau has similar functionality to, for example, Power BI or ClickSense, and there are literally hundreds of alternatives out there. So these 3 are often mentioned when you are looking for data visualization software. Advanced reports are based on data extracted from itslearning. I'll describe this in detail in a minute. We offer a selection of ready-to-go reports that we developed in collaboration with customers, and our consultants can also set up customized reports based on specific needs. And this is becoming quite common as every institution is different. Tableau offers options to filter and drill down into the data, and it's also possible to export views to Excel, PDF, and so on. In addition, we built APIs that give you direct access to the underlying reporting data. Getting to know your data, our reports and the possibilities takes a lot of time. There's a lot of information here. The data structures are basically the same, but your setup of hierarchies, integrations, naming conventions, pedagogical principles, and your experience with digital teaching tools are all different. This means that advanced reporting and data analytics is not a one-size-fits-all. We recommend working with our consultants to identify needs for customized reports if the defaults are not suitable. Customization is also needed for translations, as these reports are displayed in third-party software and not part of our usual translation process. Although we now, of course, have translations of the default reports into the main languages like German, French, and so on. While the 360-degree reports inside itslearning are near real-time and constructed directly from the data in itslearning, the advanced reports and standard reports for administrators are all based on a separate data set stored in our data warehouse. The reason for this difference is quite simple. The information in itslearning is spread across several data tables to be efficient for the users needed in the platform itself. But for reporting, we use information across these various tables, and fetching from all of them is a heavy task involving a lot of traffic, which is bad for our performance overall and also for the reports in particular. So we instead extract that information every night, we transform it to a more efficient format for the reports, and store it in data warehouse, still separate per customer to keep your information safe. From this, we generate the standard reports of logins, storage, and course visits. We generate the Tableau reports for the advanced reports, and the OData APIs fetch data from the same source for use in external tools, for instance, for archiving, combining with data from other sources, building prediction models, and so on. This is also a way to fetch data from custom-built modules for use in itslearning. The default set of reports available in advanced reporting can roughly be divided into 3 groups, although the lines between them are slightly blurred. The teaching and learning part are about how teachers are using the platform for assessments and so on with the students. So we have an elements report that look at how different tools in itslearning are being used in the courses. There's a gradebook report, which simply lists all assessments. And we have reports on learning objectives, looking at how elements are aligned to learning objectives and how they're assessed towards learning objectives. The next group is about the users. So this is about user status and activity. And as you can see, these look very similar. And that's because they just provide kind of different angles and different views to the interaction that users have with the platform. How often are they logging in? When are they logging in? How long do they stay? Which courses do they visit? And so on. The last group is the platform usage. So although everything else is about how itslearning is being used, this is more like the hierarchies, storage, and also course enrollments, just listing users in different courses. So next, I've selected a few of these reports to look at in more detail to show you the capabilities. These are all default reports that can be available at the moment advanced reporting is enabled without further need for customization unless translations are needed. I always prefer live demos when I talk about our features. However, with reports, that's difficult since an informative view requires real data, and my test sites only have a few users with infrequent use. For this first part, looking into the advanced reports, I will use a live demo site and show you some reports that contain artificial data, so you get a feel of how they display, how you navigate, and so on. And hopefully they contain enough information to make them useful. So I'll swap to my site. So I'm here logged in as an administrator, and I'm in the admin menu. And the reports for admins are found at the right at the bottom, where you have a menu for advanced reporting. So from the user side, this is where you access advanced reports. This menu item is only available to users giving specific permission to view it. Clicking it opens a page where we list the available reports for that user, and that's determined by his or her role. Both default and custom reports are shown here. So when you select a report, an embedded view of the Tableau workbook is displayed. And I'll start with this one. Advanced reports display data on site level, meaning any user from that site with access to this menu item will see the data from all organizations within the site. So for a university, you would see information from all departments and subjects. The tool was built for administrators, and we don't currently have mechanisms for restricting the data shown on lower organization levels. Although this could be a nice future addition, it's currently not in high demand. So I opened the login and session details report. This is one of our most viewed reports. Every report has several tabs at the top, as you can see here. And or they're also called views if you're in the Tableau language. You can find filters down the right-hand side, and the filters available will differ depending on the report, and they usually transfer across the tabs or views inside the report. At the bottom right, you'll find the option for download, and that could be the visual view itself, or the underlying data with various detail level. The best thing to do here is to explore it and figure out what's most useful for your purpose. The first dashboard view gives you a simple overview of number of logins per day. That's the top one here. The distribution by time of day, which is the next one here. You can see which time of day your users are using the platform. Distribution by weekday. Are students working during weekends or not? And the average number of logins and session duration distributed by site profile. So in this one, you can see that students have really short sessions, but staff have really long sessions, for instance. And you also see that a lot of the elements in these reports show more information if you hover on each item, or it makes them easier to read. The next tab shows me distribution of logins by organization. And as you can see, my artificial data only includes one of the schools in this site. Normally, you would, of course, find data for at least most of the organizations. Furthermore, if you go along in the different views here, you can find, again, much of the same information, but maybe with different angles, different scales, and so on. And you can find information based on profile. There's a detailed look into session duration. Maybe I can show you that one. This one. So this looks at how long people are spending in the platform once they are logged in. So this, of course, brings us to an interesting topic, because we cannot measure what is really going on the other side of the screen. And we don't install anything on the user's device to track what they're doing. We can only know if the itslearning window is in focus or not. So if a student logs into itslearning and then sits down to watch Netflix on their phone, well, it's still counted as a long itslearning session. Sessions data will give you good information on trends and averages, as cases such as this is mostly the exception. The next report I wanted to show you is the user course visits. So the sessions that I just showed you is about how long people are spending in itslearning in general. The course visits is about visiting each individual course. Again, you can find some of this information also in the standard report inside itslearning, but this report contains more information and more details. Visiting courses, it's not exactly the same as logging in, although I would expect the high-level data like distribution by weekday, which you can also see here in green squares, or time of day should be similar. You can look at visits for specific courses, or you could look at visits by organization, telling you which department or school has more frequent traffic in their courses, or which are not using it much. So looking at the course visit details, I would simply look at all the various courses that exist, how many users are in them, how many times the course has been visited, and so on. Now, for a bigger one, the elements report. This may sometimes take a few more seconds to open. This report contains lots and lots of nice information for you to explore on how the itslearning tools are being used in your institution. Later today, you will hear from the University College Copenhagen how they have systematically implemented itslearning across their institution, focusing on consistent use. This report would show how the various elements are used on various levels, right down to the courses. We want our customers to have success with itslearning, bringing use of digital tools from the basic level, where an LMS is more of a file storage, to mature use of interactive elements like assignments, tasks, and tests. Interactive elements also allow you to engage more with students, and the elements report is well suited to track how such elements are being used. The start page of this report shows you a high-level summary across your institution. And right away, I want to point out that most of the views here distinguish between what I call passive elements, files, notes, and so on, and the active elements like assignments and tests. In this first view, you see the accessible elements in green, so that would be assignments, tasks, and the non-accessible elements like files in blue. You can also see the average number of views, meaning how many times somebody clicked to open that element. Moving on to course details, you will see the distribution of elements types for each course, sorted by organization. Again, you have filters to help you drill down to the area of your interest, and I can also click each organization to see the detailed distribution below. I could probably spend a full hour only on this report, but I hope this at least gave you a peek into its power. Just keeping track of time here as well. So I wanted to do one more. This report, the Learning Objective Alignment Report, is of course only relevant if your institution is actually using learning objectives and using them fairly consistently by connecting them to elements in the courses. The administrator would then be able to see which areas of the curriculum are well covered in terms of content and assessments, and which areas are not. Again, good knowledge of the domain and curriculum is important, as some objectives might be more extensive than others, requiring work and assessments done outside the digital platform, and so on. Again, hovering over the fields here will give you information if it's difficult to read it visually. So this alignment report is about how objectives are connected to the elements. You can also assess on learning objectives, and there's a separate report for that. Again, of course, only relevant if you're actually using them. We know that assessing using learning objectives is not the most common practice. It does, however, have a high potential value if such a practice is established. Assessing against learning objectives is not directly connected to actual grades, and it allows you to track progress towards mastery of a subject in terms of actual skills or knowledge, instead of grades and points. For some, this is a different way of thinking about assessment, and it does take some effort to get used to. Personally, I found that valuable, as it gave me a different way of discussing assessment with my students, focusing on what they were aiming to learn instead of focusing on their grade outcomes. It also helped them understand which areas of the curriculum they mastered and which would need more work in preparation for their final exam. Let me go back to my presentation. As I mentioned, as part of the data warehouse, we have also built APIs based on the OData standard to read the reporting data. Should you want to consider using your own system for analytics and data visualizations, you can find thorough documentation of the data available in Data Warehouse on our public web pages, developer.itslearning.com. Here you'll find an overview of what the Data Warehouse is, the best practices for using it, how you set up the access, and a long list of examples of how information from Data Warehouse can be used. Every single piece of data available is documented in each of the so-called endpoints that you can reach in multiple ways. You can actually get to this using your browser, giving a pure XML response, or you can connect through Excel, Power BI, or other software supporting OData as the communication gateway. We have had customers using this to set up their own student dropout prediction model, where they fetched some information from itslearning, combined it with information they had in other systems, and based on this, they produced a filtered list of students at risk of dropping out, and could use that list to take action and follow them up more closely. So I'm really happy to see that such a high percentage are using the 360 reports. This has been a major effort for us for over the last 3, 4, 5 years or so. And we've reached the kind of maintenance state, and that's always good. We're still doing a few small tweaks. I'll mention that later on. So in this second part, I'll take you through the reports that are part of our standard offering. We've always had reports in several places in the platform, For now, I'll focus on the ones that we've built within the last about 5 years that also partly replace some older reports that we'll remove soon, making sure data is presented to you in a modern and easy-to-use way. So I've split the standard reports kind of by role. So for administrators, we have the logins report that is similar, but with a bit simpler information than in the equivalent advanced report. It's giving a high-level overview of your user login activity by date and by role, and you can see it in a glance in the distribution on active, inactive, and never active users. I'll actually show you this one. Yeah. The storage report, not necessarily relevant for all customers, depends a bit on your license model. And the storage report is also filtered by organization level. So as I mentioned, the advanced report, if you have access to those, you will see information across the entire site. In these reports, we have permission filtering. So if you are a local administrator, you will only see information from your organization in these reports. And to the far right here is the course visits report. Again, a high-level overview into how often users are visiting courses, giving you a rough insight into the activity in your institution. You can again select each organization in the top to get a filtered view. So those are the main reports for admins. There are also a few older reports available, helping them to get a high-level overview of the usage. And these reports are updated daily. As I mentioned briefly at least, the logins, course visits, and storage report is built on the reporting data, meaning that's updated only every evening. For the teachers, there's of course the 360-degree reports, but you can also find reports in the gradebook or assessment overview. There are learning objective reports. There are tool-specific reports in survey and test tool, and we do have some older reports that we are gradually now discontinuing as they are getting old, both in the actual design, but also in the technology used. So the teacher reports help teachers make good decisions and give the right support to students, being able to follow them up in a close manner. And then we also have reports for students. And the older students you have, the more important it is for them to have an ownership of their own progress and to know information about themselves. So the 360-degree reports are also made available to students. And they can also see the learning objective reports and, of course, their gradebook and so on. That's helping them track their own progress. And for the teacher and student reports, these are near real time. There's always some cache involved and stuff, but you can, basically those are updated at any time. So for the 360 reports, this is where I think there is real potential to follow up students from day to day. Although the administrator has a lot of power with the advanced reports, the teacher's power lies within the 360s. The 360-degree reports are created to, first of all, give teachers a great overview of what is going on in their class. For this part of the presentation, unfortunately, I will stick to screenshots because my sites don't actually have enough information to make this look nice. But everything you see in these screenshots is how it currently works in the platform. There are 4 reports available. Each also has a detailed view by student or by element. So first is the activity report, giving you information on course visit, time spent overall, and the type of interaction students have with the course content. The next one is progress in terms of interacting with the elements, completing assignments, watching videos, reading documents, and so on. Then there's a report on grades, looking at trends in assessments, enabling you to see if, let's say, a particular assignment gave lower results than the others. And last is the most recent report, replacing the old summary report in courses. So this resources summary is a list of all the elements in the course and the overall status of student interaction with each of them. So let's take a look at some details. This is the activity report, where you can look at the activity for the last 7 days, check which students visited your course and for how long. This makes it easy for you to identify students that are not active in your course, so you can take action. If you click on one of the students, you will get to a detail view telling you all about how that student has interacted with your course over the last year. You can see how many times they visited the course, for how long, and the tooltip of the heat map tells you how many actions they took on a particular day. Note that communication here does not include the use of the message system, as this is not linked to courses. The reports are inside the courses. The progress report is about the student's path through the course contents. On the summary view here, you can see how many activities are completed and how many resources have been visited. Again, as I mentioned before the break, we split our elements in 2 categories. The resources are the passive elements that can be viewed or consumed, while activities are interactive elements like assignments and tests where students can take some action. Again, clicking on a student, you go to a detailed view for that student with a profile on submissions. So this shows you how many activities are completed on time versus handed in late, how many resources are visited, and so on. If you see a lot of work being handed in late, or maybe not at all, this is a warning sign that that student might not be engaging in the course or is struggling to keep up. Below the summary is a list of all the course elements the student has access to, which can also be filtered by element type or the completion status. This way, you can easily identify a list of assignments this student has not completed, for example. You can also find which files they have read, which tests they have taken, and so on. If you're using grades to assess student work, this report will first of all give you an overall status with averages and trends per student. This is the first example of how consolidating assessment scales is beneficial. Using only one or a few different scales will make this report more valuable, as we have to present trends per scale and we can't combine them all into one. In the detailed student view, there is a detailed trend view color-coded by when the submission was made relative to the deadline. I know it's a bit small on the screen, but for this student, you can see that 2 of the little round dots in the graph are yellow, which means they're completed past the deadline, while the rest are green, meaning they're completed in time. Again, you have filtering options, and you can, let's say, identify if your student is consistently doing better on assignments than on tests, or other things. You will also notice that average is mentioned across in this report. For some institutions, like Norwegian schools, average is not that interesting, and if it's not used, it's of course hidden also from the report. All the summary reports give you an option to export the information to Excel for further analysis, and you also have the option to easily tick off one or more of the students and sending them a message based on what you see in the report. This makes it super easy for you to nudge them into action, reminding them that they have work that needs to be handed in, or other way around, sending an encouraging and positively reinforcing message to those that are already up to date. So resources summary. As I mentioned, this is the most recent report built in the 360s area, and it's replacing the old summary report in courses. You'll find all the same information here in a more modern view. All the course elements are listed, and we're still making a few tweaks based on user feedback to make sure the report has all the information presented in a good and easy to understand way. If you've been using this for a while, you might have noticed that we recently changed the text, some of the text on this summary page, to make it a bit easier to understand how many have completed an activity or visited a resource. There was something about how this was kind of put together, and we saw that it didn't read right once it's been used for a while. I know that a few of you might be using SCORM elements in your courses, and you might then have noticed that some of the information was missing on SCORM elements. So that's currently in progress, making a few tweaks to extend information to make sure that you can see all the information you're used to on the detailed view of the SCORM elements. And for each of these elements in the list, you can click it, and then you get a list of students and their status. So this report is kind of the other way around compared to the activities and progress report, where you see a list of the students and the detailed view is the elements. On the resources summary, you see a list of elements, and on the detailed view, you see a list of students and their status. Each individual teacher can choose to get a weekly summary sent from the course to their inbox. This setting does not affect other teachers in the course, but only you specifically. We haven't enabled this for anyone by default, as we don't want to push messages you don't want. The summary will tell you briefly about visits for the last week and a short status for the activities and resources. This way, you get a summary sent to you instead of having to go to the reports, and it makes it really easy to take action if you see visits are going down or activities are not being completed. The summary is sent every Sunday, so it's there when you go to work Monday morning. Please note that we're also working on a few improvements here in how these messages are handled. So that's hopefully coming in the next few months. Working with the team on that right now. So I cannot talk about reports without talking about data quality. There are some things to consider, like using deadlines and agreeing on assessment scales. These two factors make the reports better, giving you more information. And then there's a matter of time spent. As you've seen, we report the time spent in courses and the time spent on elements for students. Please keep in mind that we can only report what we can measure. We do not, and should not, install anything on the computer or phone of the user, and we cannot know what they're thinking and actively watching. It could be the test in itslearning, or it could be the trees outside the window. We measure the time the itslearning window is in focus on the screen, meaning if they go to a Google or Office document to write their essay, this is not the itslearning window, but they are most definitely still working on the assignment. So make sure that when you look at the time spent, you focus on trends and overall information, not minutes and seconds for a single student on a single element. You will also notice that at the start of a school year, values for logins and sessions might be a bit weird and appear to fluctuate a lot. The same happens if you're watching the reports at the same time your students are actually, in fact, online. This is perfectly normal and will stabilize over time with more data. So more data points means more stable information in the reports. And there's also a bit of cache involved, so there might be a delay of up to 30 minutes to make sure you have the exact information, especially when it comes to the time spent. Logging the time spent can be turned off. We understand that this is important in some markets. In that case, it's not displayed in any reports, and it's also not recorded. So if the setting for this is later enabled again, time logging will start from that point in time, and you will not see information from the past because that data does not exist. So the 360-degree reports are also available for mentors, giving an overview of their mentees, I think the English word is, and of course for the students themselves. The student access is managed by the teacher in each course, and I strongly advise you to enable this. It gives the students insights and ownership of their own information, and it also builds trust in what information we have about them. When they can see these reports, they can see exactly what the teachers know about them, And this also lies the foundation for good dialogue and building a solid teacher-student relation. The last little thing I want to mention is how data is treated when users are deleted. We follow the European GDPR regulation, making sure data is anonymized or deleted according to the user status, but also making sure we don't delete information that affects other users. In the advanced reports, some of the information is kept for the sake of report value, but always anonymized. This goes in particular to, if I remember correctly, the logins data. Because if you cannot track logging over time when you delete users, then you kind of lose some of the value in that report. But it's completely anonymized at that time. So there are always questions about what's new or what's coming next. We are in the process of limiting the amount of time we store data in Data Warehouse, finding a good compromise between reporting on trends, offering year-over-year comparison, while still providing good performance of large data sets. This, of course, does not affect any operational data inside itslearning. This is only about the reporting data in the reporting database. Current usage of reports varies a lot from customer to customer. Some access one report every few months, others access several reports every day. Most of the requests that I get are related to the type of information available, and we do extend this every now and then. But in general, we're at a stage now where we're not really developing new functionality, but rather maintaining and tweaking what we have to ensure good performance and high value. The power in the advanced reports is not in the coding of functionality, but in the creation of and use of the reports themselves.